Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this LinkedIn Live event today. Today, we're going to be discussing strategies for success amid this really challenging office market. And every day we keep hearing about challenges in this market. So today we're going to talk with Sarah Silva and Bess Cooney about this. My name is Jerry Frank, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of STRATAFOLIO. So we're a cloud-based software solution that is focused on that small to mid-sized commercial real estate owner who has office, and we're designed to help our owners save both time and money while managing their portfolio. So today we have two guests with us. We have Sarah Silva, and we also have Bess Cooney, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves since I'm a little tongue-tied here.
Thank you, Jerry. We are so excited to be chatting with you about this. It is a hot topic everywhere. If you open the news, every day there's a few articles about commercial real estate, and they're often at the top. So it's great to meet you all. My name is Sarah Silva. I work at JLL as an office tenant rep advisor. I've been in the industry for over 10 years, and we have experience on both the landlord side representing buildings as well as the tenant side representing users of space.
And I'm Bess Cooney. I've been in the commercial real estate industry, both on the landlord and tenant rep side for 7 years now. And this is again my partner, Sarah. So we're really happy to be here and join this conversation.
Yep. And just a little bit about us personally. We both live in Chicago. Yes, we live downtown. Bess is born and raised here, and I'm from the Chicago suburbs. A lot of our practice is in Chicago, but we also work on deals around the world, from Switzerland to Sydney. So we are very familiar with Chicago as well as what's happening nationally and globally.
All right. Well, I'm excited about this topic, and I will be peppering you with questions as we go.
Please.
We're ready.
And everybody else, please, this is meant to be interactive. This is for you. So if there's a burning question you have, or, something little, please ask away.
Yes.
Okay, great.
So where we are today, what the heck is going on? COVID happened. Interest rates are up. It's harder to get financing. It's harder to borrow money. The Fed just had their most aggressive rate increase in over 40 years. We're back at 2008 levels. Couple that with office use being down and crazy uncertainty about the future and what the meaning of the office, is going forward. Historically, office rents have been the second highest cost on a company's balance sheet. And I think a lot of companies we're working with are taking a look and saying, hey, that doesn't add up anymore. Why is the second highest cost something that we're only using 50% of the time? And oh yeah, only 30% of our employees are even using it. So all eyes are focused on office space.
And I think COVID really was like a change, like it really just reset what the office space is. People are now doing hybrid. They're coming in 3 times a week, usually working from home Mondays through Fridays, which just means you just don't need as much office space as you once did. So people are rethinking it. And for the last 2.5 years, we've really seen this like flight to quality. So Class A office space they have the lowest vacancy compared to like a Class B or a Class C building. And that's because employers are trying to get their employees back. And the way they do that is to entice them with newer office space that have fully amenitized buildings, et cetera.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of funny. No one's going back to the office, but guys, we're working out. We're going to we're traveling, we're booking hotels. So those spaces are working. And I think to Bess's point of just like hybrid work, we're able to do the noon workout and, maybe leave on a Thursday instead of a Friday to travel. So the good news is that we're all out and about.
Work-life balance is here.
Yeah,
sure.
Exactly. And it's being proved with, various activities besides sitting at your desk in an office space.
So on that slide, so are you seeing, because so many people are going out to eat, they are working out, are you seeing that some of that office space now is being converted to those other activities, those restaurants and gyms and other things that are lifestyle?
Yes,
completely.
So I don't know, if you're familiar with Chicago or not, but there is an area called Algonquin. There is a huge mall that, has not been successful for the past 20 years, and they are converting it into a pickleball stadium and center. So things like that are happening. So we're just using spaces differently, and it's amazing to see an existing structure being able to be repurposed and used differently and activated.
And then in terms of like, also to that point, like also landlords are overly amenitizing their building, which I mentioned earlier. Like they now have wellness centers in their office space. There's gyms, there's spas, like they're just rethinking how an employee would utilize the amenity space more than they ever have historically.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's got to take off that COVID weight, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, gyms are thriving. So we were very happy to see that. So a couple more market trends. Surprise, surprise, everyone wants to be in warm weather. So Miami, Phoenix, and San Diego are the opposite of kind of, you know, what's been happening with office space. They have been booming. They've been building like never before. People are moving there, and you know, those few cities are not included with kind of the negative news articles that you're hearing.
People decided they no longer want to be in the cold weather climates when they don't have to be. So they all moved, which was great, which was really smart on their part.
Exactly. And then we have seen the rise of what we're calling lifestyle assets. You know, before historically we used to hear of a Class C building, of a Class B building, of a Class A building, of a trophy building. Now they've taken it up a notch and calling it a lifestyle asset. So that's really, to Bess's point, the live, work, play, steam showers, crazy things, you know, to attract young talent back into the office, we've all been very comfortable working from home. So now you're competing with, you know, all the luxuries of your house. Their office world is trying to think of how to accommodate those in the office building.
And when people think about their office space, you know, no one is now doing like a 1-to-1 desk ratio. They're saying, let's come into the office 3 days a week. Let's allow for collaboration. So when people aren't working from home, let's make this time effective. So that's allowed for people to downsize on their square footage, which has allowed them to spend more on their office space than they have been.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're working with your clients to get them into if it's a tenant getting into an office space, then what did you previously use as a metric for putting those employees in that space, and what do you do now?
It's a great question.
Yes, it's a fantastic question. So people like to rely on this per square foot per person,
right?
You know, because it's just easy, right? We can all use it as a baseline. So typically we've seen anything from 80 square feet a person to 200-ish, with the average being around 150. Mm-hmm. We're seeing it kind of, you know, in the 120 square foot a person range lately. People are just being more efficient and they're taking less space. You know, on average, companies are taking about a quarter less space, and they're just making it more efficient, and they're often, you know, moving to a nicer building. So your rent, kind of all in rent on an annual basis, stays around the same. You're just getting into a little bit smaller space in a nicer building. But the 120 is pretty typical for what we've been seeing from law firms to, you know, a totally open work environment, just because more collaboration spaces are being added, more phone rooms,
Zoom rooms.
Yep.
Okay.
And people are like, they'll do larger tables, like lab tables, and they'll count those, like each chair as a seat, rather than just like a desk, because people will use those as a work zone.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. Well, it's really interesting to know that there is this additional class of buildings, because we in STRATAFOLIO, we track what that class is, A, B, C. Looks like we need to add a new one.
Yes. And, you know, in the city of Chicago, we're even seeing A and A minus. So we're thinking of buildings, you know, drastically different than ever before. You know, there's 8 million square feet of sublease space in the market in the CBD of Chicago. That's about 5% of all the space. Of that 5%, 10% of that is in an A or trophy building. So 90% of space is in B and C buildings, which I think is a story that's often untold as we talk about sublease space and, you know, the market being in shambles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting.
We've also seen a ton of spec suites being built, just because it was an easy button for a lot of tenants and companies, where as they were determining kind of how their employees are now working with hybrid, they were just like, I don't want to take the time. I don't know what my space looks like. I don't want to commit to a layout for 5 years, et cetera. So the landlord took all the responsibility and we're like, we're going to try this layout. And it was plug and play, move in ready. So that's been a really big savior, especially for the Chicago market in terms of getting companies back to work.
Another fun stat, as we talk about sublease space, is you guys can probably guess, which industry has the most sublease space in the market. I can tell you, it's the Spotify, the Twitter, the Meta, the Salesforce, and the Microsoft. It's tech. So we saw that really booming the past few years. And now, I think it's 80% of space in the sublease market is tech companies.
Oh, very interesting. I had no idea.
So as we talk about, okay, very negative, right? We don't want to be negative. There are 5 ways that we think that owners can stay ahead of the curve right now as activity is low. There's ways to be kind of updating your listings, investing in tech, knowing your competitors, kind of understanding negotiation tactics to talk, to help keep tenants in your building or bring tenants to your building. And we'll go into each one of those.
Yeah, and actually, what we wanted to talk through with STRATAFOLIO is from a prop tech perspective. What we're seeing in the market is owners right now are using a lot of different solutions to make things work together. So even though they would like this comprehensive system, a lot of people don't realize that there are technology solutions out there that are specifically focused on commercial real estate. So I know a lot of owners out there are using QuickBooks and spreadsheets, or they're using a software that is really focused first on residential, and then they're having to take take stuff out of that system, do their CAM reconciliation, pull stuff into QuickBooks to be able to see how things are working. And it's a very time-consuming process that is fraught with errors. And we see this day in and day out that they are manually creating rent rolls, they're manually creating their invoices, and they're missing things that are costing them money. But the sad thing is, for these owners, not only are they losing money every single month, but then when they're going to get refinanced, this becomes a big topic of conversation with their lenders. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but having good financials represented clearly and correctly from the very beginning is important for that lender relationship, especially now.
Jerry, that is such a good point. And we'll get into some stories about how we've had clients move from buildings just because their CAM reconciliation was off, or it took, the owner till June to figure it out, or their rent invoice was wrong because, they didn't account for the annual rent increase or something like that. So prop tech is super relevant right now, and it's a way to stay ahead.
Yeah.
So the first one may seem obvious, but have you ever been scrolling on Zillow or Redfin and come across a building that has a blurry photo and no floor plans, and you're like, what the heck is this? It's in Lincoln Park, but why is this photo blurry? You just kind of dismiss it. That's how people are viewing your listings. You have to have clear photos. Sometimes a floor plan, and sometimes you have to pay, the $500 or $300, whatever it is, to have a correct floor plan. We're seeing landlords go so far as to creating mock floor plans. So to Bess's point of, let's show a 50-seat, office, let's show an 80, and let's show a 30, just giving people different ideas so they can see themselves in your spaces.
The second one is know your competitors. I think this is pretty straightforward, but again, there's a reason, you keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. You have to know who your competition is in the market because you'll be constantly competing against them. And so knowing that is going to be a huge advantage to you in terms of negotiations.
Also knowing what amenities are your competitors offering and where do you stand in the market? Are you the lower cost option? Are you the higher cost option, and why? And is that the messaging that you're getting out there? How do your brokers talk about the building? Are you planning any updates? Can they speak to those? Knowing who you're competing with is everything. How do you prepare, for a race? What's everybody else doing? And then how are you getting ahead? So, understanding the competitive set, even walking those buildings, is huge. I know in Chicago right now, ownership groups come in and they look at every single other building, their new amenities. They go so far as to, looking in the parking lots and seeing what's the parking situation? How many private spots are you giving away? Does it look nice? Is this a good experience when you enter the building? We work with owners that have certain smells in the building, and it's the little things that kind of give you that competitive edge.
Because then you can differentiate yourself.
Yes.
Which is key.
And they're also investing in the right tech along with it.
What's the most creative thing that you've seen owners do in trying to get to list their space or get a tenant to come in?
So we actually have a building here in Chicago that's like one of our favorites to tour, because for a lot of our clients, when we're doing a tour day, it's a long day. I mean, you're touring 7 to 10 buildings, and office space is office space. So it just gets you start to it blurs together. And so there's one building that actually has really taken a hospitality driven approach. So they have someone that is actually trained from like a 5-star hotel that greets you in the lobby with waters, cookies, etc., and brings you directly up to your space. So you feel like you're in a 5-star hotel. And it's every time we bring a client through this building, it's a differentiator. They always remember that building. It always leads as a top runner in terms of their short list. So
yeah, and I think the strategy behind that was, how do we infuse hospitality into office space? I know hospitality is an overused word, but they actually selected, it was the GM at the Langham, and now he's running an office building. So they literally pulled someone running one of the best hotels in the city to run their office building, which I thought is pretty creative. And you can tell when you walk in there that something's different.
And what about, so a lot of our customers are all over the United States, and they're not necessarily in a tier 1 size city. If you're in a tier 2 or tier 3 city, and you're not really trying to tenant a skyscraper, how would you recommend that same action or activity be planned for some of those smaller spaces?
That is such a great question. And we just experienced that actually in the suburbs of Chicago. Like, there is such a plethora of space out there. It is truly, it's a nerve-wracking time to be an owner right now with a suburban building that was built 30 years ago. There's one owner who's doing things really well. They painted the lobby, and guys, it sounds small, but it seriously makes an impact when you're touring 5 buildings, that could work for your client. So they painted the lobby. They added modern seating and a couple rugs. So you kind of walk in and you're feeling a little bit more at home. And I think our client sat down because we were, on building 4 of 5. And now we're all chatting in the lobby about the building, and the owner is getting to know the client or the prospective tenant. And it was just a memorable moment, instead of, we'll meet you at the front door, we'll walk to the elevator, we'll go up to the space that they probably won't remember, come back down and leave. So that was a little way
for them to utilize the space and really experience building.
Yes. Also, it's little, but offering or being able to offer private parking, people like their names on things. And, being able to say, hey, this could be your private parking spot. We also provide a sign for you, and it can have your company name or your name on it. So just something little that is a feel good sort of thing.
Yeah.
Tenants want to feel special.
They do.
So the little things do go a long way.
And they cost so very little.
Yes.
So true. We even have a few buildings here in Chicago that they'll do donuts and coffee in the morning, and you see other tenants in your lobby, and it's just nice to be able to talk to people and get to know the people that you're working with on a day-to-day basis in your building. So little moments like that.
And then we're getting a couple questions in, so I just want to address those because they are such great questions. Michael wants to know kind of the tug between leaders and employees. So how do leaders get employees back to the office? Guys, it's really, really tough. I can tell you a lot of our tech clients are struggling major with it. Where we've seen it be successful is the leaders are forced to come in, and sometimes it's tied to compensation. If you're not going to invest in your younger talent, then you could potentially be penalized for it. But I think the companies that are most successful started forcing people to kind of come in early, so they didn't wait. we know a handful of those clients that didn't have people coming back for 3 years, and in, object in motion stays in motion, object at rest stays at rest sort of thing. Having people come in on Mondays is a big thing that our clients, that we're hearing from our clients on how to get people back. You just had 2 days off for a weekend for rest. Mondays are our big day instead of saying Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Right.
I also think, for the last couple of years, the employees have had the upper hand in a lot of these negotiations, and that has started to turn. So it's kind of now the power is back in terms of the employer's hands, where they're like, if you would like a job, we expect you to be in the office 3 days a week, so they can have a more stern approach because employees don't want to lose their jobs.
Right.
So we've definitely seen that shift. There's also, we also read a recent article that, recent graduates, they want to be in the office.
Mhm.
They, if you're a younger employee and you're just starting off at a brand new job, it's really hard to learn via Zoom. You're not meeting anyone, you're not connecting with your employees, you don't feel the company loyalty, there's no collaboration. It's hard for your leadership to know if you're doing a good job in terms of getting promoted. There's so many varying factors in terms, like, office is important for a reason. And so we were really, happy to hear that the graduating class of 2023 wants to be in.
Yeah. And I think another interesting, positive news, the peak of remote positions, like remote job postings, peaked in February of 2020, and it's been significantly declining ever since, by more than 10%. So that is a good indicator that companies are no longer offering the remote position. And I think that's also kind of what caused this, how do I get people back in? But you're listing jobs that are remote, fully remote, hybrid. It's confusing. So remote jobs potentially, which we're seeing are being reduced, and have people come back in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there are, the job market actually is doing quite well. So even if there is this partially remote thing, more companies are hiring, and they need a place to put some of those employees.
Mm-hmm. And another great question from Seth Halpern, he wants to understand, how are you helping people kind of figure out what their office needs are? And every company is different, but everyone wants to know what everyone's doing. So we encourage, roundtable discussions with leadership groups to really understand what your needs are. And there is no one fit solution, which everyone wants. It's the easy button.
Right.
But in general terms, we are seeing 25% to a third reduction in space, especially in like the tech world. And then, that flight to quality, to help encourage people to come back to an exciting new space.
Right. And I think, to talking about the question from Seth, I think this really does become having that relationship with a broker that knows and understands your market, understands what you're trying to achieve, is a huge thing. So I think this is a really good time before maybe it wasn't as critical, but now, because of the state of the market, that relationship with you all is incredibly important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think Sarah and I differentiate ourselves in that respect, and just like we take the time to understand what our client needs, what their goals are for their office space, because ultimately, if your office space isn't serving you, like, it's too expensive for it not to be. Like, we want it to be, it needs to serve you at the end of the day, and that's what we really focus on. So I think it's really important now more than ever to like really sit down and have hard discussions, get architects in, figure out what your growth plans are. And
the discussions are hard.
Yeah.
It's we don't all have a crystal ball, but when leaders say, okay, we're going to do it, we're going to take a chance on it. United Airlines, they are a perfect example of creating 2 amazing collaborative floors that people are using in the city. Echo's a good example. We're seeing law firms think of space differently, where traditionally everyone had their own private office. Now we're saying, hey guys, we actually can have smaller offices. We're going to save on rent, but we're going to add a communal kitchen. And we want people to go there, and we're going to have seminars once a month to kind of continuing education pieces. So people using space differently. And then of course, sharing what their competitors are doing and is always, relevant too, but it can continue to be done better and better.
I also think an important thing is also the term of the lease. Like
Mhm.
there is no point that you need to be signing a long-term lease in this environment until we fully understand what hybrid looks like or what it looks like for your company. When you're getting a better idea of how many people are coming in certain days a week, like you should be signing 3 and 5 year leases max, in our opinion, as you figure that out, because you don't need to be doing the commitment you once did.
And this kind of rolls into knowing your tenants, which is one of the other pillars. And it's, as an owner, yes, like 10-year lease, we don't want to talk to you for 8 of it. And thank you for your, your check. But as we're seeing, like companies are going bankrupt. We just had massive issues with, a bank. So staying in constant communication with your tenant, understanding how many of their employees are even coming in. Do they need 2 extra parking spaces? A lot of times it's kind of those little things. Do they need their carpet cleaned? When was the last time that you've actually been to their space? Do you know the current CEO? Do you know the current office manager who is trying to get these people back, who's opening the space,
Right.
every day? What are their trends? And I think it's, it's just an eye-opening. So when they come to you and say, I don't think we're going to renew, you're like, actually, I've noticed that you've only had 30 people of 50 coming in. We have a space on the other side of the floor that's, half the size, minimal TI out of pocket. We can sign a 2-year deal there for you. Like meeting them kind of halfway.
Being creative.
And starting those conversations, really knowing what they need is more important than ever. Sometimes they just want a game room, and it's like, cool, we have so much vacant space. Let's put a pool table next door and we'll unlock the space from, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. for you.
Yeah, and probably the other thing around that is just understanding that credit worthiness of that tenant, because even though they may be paying every single month, it does not necessarily mean that they are not in financial hardship. We work with another partner called Otso who actually does work to understand how is that tenant really performing.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are thinking about that renewal, taking a look at that might be an important thing as well.
Absolutely. And then the 4th pillar is starting the conversations early. Construction timelines have been stretched right now. So once you get within that, 12-month move period, like we're already kind of late. So just making sure that you're touching base with them early on. We have a good example of a client who had a whole floor in the building and they would send in work orders, can you please fix the restrooms? Can you please, paint the corridor? It's getting a little scratched up. Nothing until 8 months prior to the lease expiration. And the client was already,
The damage was done.
Damage was done.
Mhm.
But really, taking a dry erase on a corridor.
Yeah.
Once a month, it's those little things that go a long way.
Yeah. Spending money and taking care of your property really goes a long way. And the tenants do notice it. I mean, they spend more time. Historically, they've spent more time at their office space than they have in their home. So,
and they don't really want to leave. It's troublesome for their business to stop work, go find a new space, do the whole down payment. It's loss of productivity for an extended period of time. Even as fast as they try to do it, it's difficult.
It's like moving from your house. No one really wants to move. It's not an enjoyable experience. So yes.
Right. And
But if your landlord wasn't fixing your dishwasher, you're going to move.
Right.
Another thing that we're helping clients kind of solve for right now is understanding square footage analysis. So, hey, I lease 50,000 square feet, but what does the future look like? JLL has an awesome tool, and there are a lot of other tools out there that you can kind of plug in. Hey, I need 30 seats. We need this much collaboration space. We need a town hall, and it will kind of pop out a square footage for you. And we're happy to send that link around. But kind of just starting initial conversations with that sort of thing can be helpful. Even as an owner, like you could be proactively doing that, working with your, landlord reps to solve for, what somebody might need in the future. And our 5th pillar is leveraging PropTech tools.
Yeah. This is a really big deal. And I think this is a big deal now more than before, because a lot of owners are trying to lower their costs for operating, because that holding cost, that operating cost, that's something they can control a little bit. And so maybe they did need an additional staff person. And if they use technology, they don't have to hire that additional person. But at the same time, going back to what I had mentioned before, using technology can reduce the number of errors. It can help you do CAM reconciliation. Actually, if we want to move to the next screen, if you want to be able to do CAM reconciliation in one click and do it in January rather than June or July, so you're not upsetting your tenants, or being able to do create a rent roll on demand that's accurate that you can send over to your lender. So that's what STRATAFOLIO does. We integrate with QuickBooks, both desktop and online, and we give small to mid-size owners that total commercial property management solution. And it makes you as an owner look more professional. And you're likely to save money. We find it almost every time. There are missed lease escalations. There are expired leases. We find all kinds of things when we're reviewing data.
And it's also a great tool to share with, the person who's representing your building. They want to see these numbers and understand how the property is really working, right? Like, where can we do better? Because they see it from a different lens, and we see it from a totally different lens. So kind of getting those different perspectives is really key in talking about saving money.
Yeah, and lenders right now, they're dealing with a lot of stress from a lot of different reasons right now because of the increased vacancy rates on office, the increased interest rates. So penciling things out, it's harder right now, and vacancy and the value of these office buildings have gone down. So, but at the same time, these lenders don't want to take that building back. So what they want to do is be able to work with their clients, but those clients need to come to the table with good tools and be receptive to some suggestions from these lenders.
Exactly.
1,000%.
So that kind of wraps up the content. And another question came in from Michael. Are brokers up to speed on what Flex Office brings to the building? The value of Flex goes beyond the four walls of the premises. Michael, yes. We are huge proponents of that. It has offered our clients, abilities to swing up and swing down. They've been able to host more meetings. They've been able to, bring in an indie team for 5 days for an intensive workshop using Flex Space. It does offer, it's a great building amenity. We always try to highlight it. And a lot of landlords are also kind of having their own version of Flex too, which is so helpful as we all want to stay more flexible, sign, shorter term leases. It's Flex has been awesome. We have many clients that have even gone to a Flex program that has saved them a ton of money. So we're big proponents of it.
There also is another question from Seth. It says, it feels like being a broker now is a lot more than finding space. What separates you and JLL from others? That's a great question. I think now more than ever, we're really more consultants and advisors than we are just tenant rep brokers. We sit down with companies and we really have to think strategically in terms of what their office space is going to look like, similar to what Sarah mentioned earlier in terms of space layouts. They come in saying, we have 15,000. I think we still need 15,000. And we're like, well, what makes you think that? Let's plug this into a space plan. Mm-hmm. It's also in terms of cutting costs. Everybody wants to cut costs right now. So coming up with creative and strategic ways to get costs off their balance sheet. So we really have to sit down and go through all of the pinpoints of what operates their business and what ultimately is going to look best for them in terms of office space.
Yeah. And I think because, we have a global platform, we have insight to so much data. When a client comes to us and says, should I grow in Salt Lake or Columbus? We have the labor data to back it up. We have the office rents to give you so we can really help you build the business case of what makes more sense. Where should we grow? Or maybe we don't need an office. Maybe I hire 20 people kind of remote until, we have enough in a kind of a certain location, and then we can open an office. So we're seeing it's just a lot more like deep diving because anyone can say, I can find you an office space.
Yeah. Benchmarks have really been evaporated. I mean, you really have to go case by case at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're both really highlighting what's going on here is you are a broker partner to these individuals that are trying to find space. And that doesn't start a week ago. This is a long-term relationship, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And oftentimes brokers get a bad rap, like historically. And guys, and I'm like first to admit, like, yes, there are, bad deals that happen. But now I think with all the data that people have at their fingertips, these large companies, whether it's a JLL, a Colliers, Seabury, whatever it is, these companies have the data and they want to share it. JLL spent $500 million in tech and, getting the best information. So like, we really want to share that with our clients and with owners, because we can all be better for it.
Yeah.
We want to invest in our clients at the end of the day. And
Yes. And we all have the same client and they're the user of space.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, thank you so much, Sarah and Bess. Actually, if you want to bring up that last screen so people can get your contact information, this is really important. So if you are looking for some good partner brokers, both Sarah and Bess are great resources for you. If you're looking for anything with prop tech in terms of total property management, please give me a call. So thank you both for your time. And next month we have another exciting topic coming up. But if you have other things that you would like to learn from STRATAFOLIO or partners that we could bring in and talk through with about things that are interesting in the industry, let us know. We're always looking for some interesting topics. Thank you both.
Thank you so much,
Jerry.
Sherry. Really appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.